Quazi here. Nikola Tesla was one of the most intelligent people to have ever walked the earth. But there's something quite peculiar about his work. Now, you may have heard me mention him in previous videos, but today what I want to do is address this peculiarity and how this relates to his real work on vibration. Now, one experiment of his that gained a lot of attention was his earthquake machine, otherwise known as Tesla's mechanical oscillator. Tesla's concept for the machine was based on the principle of resonance. He believed that if he could find the resonant frequency of a building or a bridge, he could use the machine to generate vibrations at that exact frequency and cause the structure to shake violently. And there's a long story of him doing just that. It was reported that in 1898, Tesla's mechanical oscillator caused his building and the surrounding area to shake so violently that it caused some of the nearby residents to actually believe that an earthquake had occurred. But it wasn't until years later that he actually admitted that it was him who was behind this creation, behind this nuisance. And after disclosing this information, one of the reporters then asked Tesla what would be needed to destroy the Empire State Building. His reply: vibration will do anything. It would only be necessary to step up the vibrations of the machine to fit the natural vibration of the building, and the building would come crashing down. And it's no surprise, because the law of vibration states just that. Everything that exists in our world, whether visible or not, is made up of energy and light. And it's this energy and light that exists as a vibratory frequency. And it's not just physical matter that carries energy either. Thoughts carry energy, words carry energy. Even how you say something carries a certain energy along with it. And whether you realize it or not, all of the above plays an integral part in creating your reality. Now, as Tesla said, if you want to find the secrets to the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. The power of vibration allowed Nikola Tesla to shake buildings and bridges. Learning to properly harness the power of vibration will allow you to shake your reality and shape your destiny exactly the way you want it. Now look, advanced ancient civilizations such as the Atlanteans, Egyptians, and even the Mayans already knew how to do this thousands of years ago. But this knowledge has since been kept hidden. The elites have puppeteered the world just like sheep so they could keep you controlled. Please understand this. Throughout history, those who are more powerful, monarchs, kings, and the elites have always exerted their control over the masses. Back then they did it blatantly through either direct force or propaganda. But in the modern day and age, the elites have to become much more clever with, all the human rights we have right now, and they have to fly under the radar. So in this video, I'm going to share with you how you can break free of the chains that the elites have confined you to. But in order to do this, you must first learn how to alter your own vibration, okay? And the best way to change your whole vibrational makeup is to do one simple thing. And this one thing is what has profoundly changed my life and also the lives of over 1,000 clients that I've coached. And this one thing, quite simply put, is the art of identity shifting. Now, in life, our vibration is determined not by what we do, how we feel or think, but fundamentally by who we are being in every single moment. Please think about this for a second. Everything that you do, how you feel, how you think is influenced by who you are being. So by the end of this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you a complete guide on identity shifting and how you can become a completely new person and experience a completely different reality to the one that you're experiencing right now. But in order to do that, we have to understand three main parts to this process. And this involves, one, going beyond the identity to crafting a brand new identity. And finally, number 3, learning to stay within the crafted identity. Now, this is going to be one of the most important reality creation manifestation videos you'll ever watch. And I'm super, super excited to be able to share this with you. So please sit tight, please take notes, please pay attention, and let's go right ahead and get started. So to begin this video, I want to take a minute to explain to you what identity shifting is, because you might be wondering, what is this identity shifting thing? Why is it so important? And how did I get exposed to this idea? So I had the initial realization of identity shifting when I first started to play video games. When I was playing video games, what I realized was I was leveling up a character. And the video games that I was the most interested in were RPG, role-playing games, where you can level up a character, unlock a skill, and you just grow and you keep growing. And what I realized was that throughout my teenage years, I would escape real life through video games. And that was because video games were predictable for me. I could grow, I could, level up a character. There was a clear-cut path, but in life, that wasn't quite there. There were lots of uncertainties. Life was very challenging, difficult. And so I was kind of a loser in middle school, throughout the beginning of high school, and the majority of high school, because I was trying to escape through video games and having some online friends. But then one day, out of a deep frustration, it really dawned on me. If I can play this video game and level up a character, why can't I do this in real life? I was sick and tired of being bullied, of staying stuck, of being unattractive and not getting attention from women, of not making money and all of those things. And I just felt like a victim. And through this deep frustration, I started to explore how I can better myself. And my first exposure to bettering myself and leveling up was through going to the gym and lifting. I believed that if I lifted weights and got a little more muscular, those kids wouldn't bully me, and I would be a little more attractive and have attention from women. That was my first realization, but then I got deeper into that when I read this book called Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. What was super interesting for me to see in that book was Maxwell Maltz was a cosmetic surgeon, and he realized that every time he gave someone a new face or some features and did some sort of cosmetic surgery, these people, they literally became a different person. Like, they would come in feeling down and low about themselves, low self-esteem, can't stand up for themselves. He gives them just a different feature. Like, let's say, they get a nose job and improve something they've been insecure about their whole lives. And all of a sudden, they start making more money. They start being more confident. They're happier. All of these changes happen because they themselves had an identity that they held onto when they perceived themselves as ugly and unattractive. And in their minds, they built up this new identity when they would look a certain other way and get that cosmetic surgery, right? So that's why an appearance change can be so powerful, because if it's grounded with the right intent and you can picture yourself being a different person, then that's exactly what happens. By the way, this is kind of what happened to me. In middle school, I believe people bullied me because I had crooked teeth, because they would always call me buck-toothed Quazi. And I wonder if any of my middle school friends are watching this. But I was in the UK and I got picked on a lot, and they would call me buck-toothed Quazi. And I thought that that was the source of all my suffering, that was the source of all my problems. And for years I begged my mum to get me braces. Finally, when I turned 14, I got braces. And I imagined myself, when I got braces, I would, as soon as I took my braces off and had straighter teeth, all of a sudden I would become this different person. And it was ridiculous to think of. But as soon as I turned like 14, 15, and it was time for me to take off my braces, that's exactly what happened. I literally came out of it a completely different person, because I presented myself differently. I was no longer picked on. I had my first girlfriend ever, and my life just drastically changed. I just felt different every single day. I felt much more confident. I felt much more better about myself, and I had a lot more friends, and I just became a more social, extroverted person. I could express myself with ease. So all of these changes happened because I pictured myself being someone else after this appearance change, okay? But the key for you to know is you don't have to do something as gimmicky as that to change your identity like I did, okay? So I've found throughout years of learning all of this stuff, through reading books like Psycho-Cybernetics, through applying this stuff, that this is really the fundamental thing. Like if you shift your identity, everything in your life can change. And this other realization I had through reading this book called Parallel Universes of Self by Frederick Dodson. So when I read that book, I started to fully understand why this happens. So if you don't mind, I'm going to explain to you through this diagram how these changes happen, why we experience such a shift in our reality as soon as we shift our identity. So for most people, what they believe is in order to get and experience a particular reality, what must happen is they must take action, which is true, right? So most of society is stuck in that level of action, of doing. What can I do in order to get something? And then when you evolve a little bit more, you start to understand that my actions are being influenced by something. What is influencing my action? My action is being influenced by the predominant thought and feeling that I have. Ah, interesting. Thought plus feeling. Please take a moment to think about this. When I have a thought of doing something and I feel compelled to do it, I will do that thing. I will take that action. This is especially prevalent when people are fearful. When you have a fear of, let's say, your money getting stolen from your bank account, what are you going to do? You have the thought of money getting stolen and you have the feeling of fear of your money getting stolen. It's immediately going to propel you into action to move that money out of that bank account or somewhere else or change your password. So this thought and feeling propels us to act. But what influences the thoughts and feelings that we have? This is where it gets really interesting. What influences the thoughts and feelings are our world views, how we view the world. So in that instance of fear, where you become protective of your money, you view the world as containing thieves who are out there to take your money. There are people out there, I believe that there are people out there who are trying to take my money. And therefore, that's exactly what happens. But what influences your world view? What influences this paradigm of reality that you have? It's how you view yourself. Right? So the world is a reflection of you. If you view yourself as someone who's, susceptible to money getting stolen from them, then that's exactly what your worldview becomes. And that's exactly what your thoughts and feelings are. So this is where identity comes in. Okay? Our worldviews are to some extent influenced by our identity and how we view ourselves in relationship with our worlds. So the identity, the self-view, and the paradigm, the worldview, are examples of beliefs that we hold. The beliefs influence the thoughts and feelings that we have. And the thoughts and feelings ultimately influence the actions that we take, which then influence the reality that we experience. If you can stop bothering with the effects, this is what most people do, right? They look at the actions. Oh, I want to make more money. What's the business opportunity that will allow me to make more money? They try that business opportunity, they make some money, but they can't sustain it. 1 month they make a lot of money, next month they go back down. Oh, I want to become more confident. What can I do? Okay, let me just try to correct my posture a little bit. And they experience some result, but the deep-rooted worldview and self-view, the identity, are still there. So they always revert back to that old identity. They always revert back to their old patterns. This is the number one reason people never experience a permanent change in their reality. I really want to try my best to hammer this point home. A lot of people who experience a particular reality in which they are, let's say, they are addicted to a substance, like cigarette smokers. You'll notice, and I remember reading this in a Tony Robbins book, once they change their identity, they view themselves no longer as a smoker. They view themselves as a non-smoker. As soon as they do that, they immediately quit smoking. It becomes much easier to quit smoking. So if you look at any behavior that you have, instead of looking at it as, hey, I'm a smoker that's trying to quit, instead of looking at it as, I'm a smoker that's trying to quit, look at it as, I'm a non-smoker. Smoking is unnatural to me. If you start to shift your perspective just like that, if you just start to do that, you'll see that it becomes so much easier to change your habits, which then influence the reality you experience. So this was my first exposure to identity shifting, and what was crazy was when I started to apply everything that I'm about to share with you in this video, I started to experience dramatic shifts in my life. I went from someone who was a corporate 9-to-5 employee to viewing myself as a business owner and someone who's worthy and capable of running his own business. Because at first there was a lot There were lots of uncertainties, like could I do it, could I not do it? I was doubting myself all the time, but these doubts are no longer there. They don't affect me as much, right? They're still always going to be there, but they don't affect you as much because you start to see yourself differently. So I went from being a corporate 9-to-5 employee, being enslaved to a paycheck, to making my own money and growing my business to 7 figures, doing 100 grand a month, and living the life that I want to live. So this whole mission is to find out what desires you have and find out who you must become in order to effortlessly experience that desire, to live that as your base. Because please remember, in life, we get what we tolerate. We never achieve our highest standards. You will never achieve your highest dreams. You only get what you tolerate, what your baseline standard is. If you're willing to tolerate 10K a month, then that's what you're going to get. You're going to do everything possible to get to 10K a month, and then you're going to rest, you're going to relax, you're going to get lazy. So that's exactly what happens. So in order to begin the first step towards identity shifting, by the way, something very important needs to happen. In order to make a shift, you need to learn to disassociate from this current conditioned identity. Because please understand, who you are viewing yourself right now as, it's influenced by society. Okay, people, your parents have told you to view yourself a certain way. Your parents have told you that you are this way. Your society, people around you, your friends have told you a certain way. Your environment's basically telling you who you should be. Your outside is influencing your internal. But our mission right now is to have our internal influence our internal so we can influence what our external reality is. Once you change the inside, the outside begins to change as well. So in order to do that, we must first learn how to disassociate from this current identity that was unconsciously crafted so that we can consciously craft who it is we want to be. Please understand, you have to take off the mask that you're wearing, be empty your cup so you can fill it up with the liquid that you want to fill it up with. So let's understand the first and most important step to identity shifting, which is going beyond identity. Okay, so now that you know the importance of identity shifting, let's talk about the first step to beginning identity shifting in the process. We talked about the importance of having to disassociate from your current identity, but the question becomes, how do we do that? I want you to take a moment right now to observe all the thoughts that you're having right now. What thought is arising? Just observe. Observing doesn't mean you judge or try to change it. Simply watch and see what's there. Just take a moment to observe all of the thoughts that are arising. Now, in the body, observe all the feelings that are being felt. Now that you can observe thought and feeling, ask, what is it that's observing? What is observing this thought and feeling? What is that quality that is observing that thought and feeling? Does this quality ever change? Look into your past. The quality that is observing thought and feeling now, was that quality ever different in the past? When you were 4 years old? When you're 12 years old? When you were 20? Was that quality ever different? What is that? Now that you can observe your thought and feeling, and you can observe the observation, you can observe the observing of the thought and feeling, something very powerful happens. You now realize that you are no longer the thought and feeling. This is the beginning of disassociation. Most people are so deeply entrenched in their thought and feeling. They own their thoughts and feelings, right? They become so identified with it. And that causes so much unnecessary suffering in the world. It's crazy. But even more than that, when you become so deeply identified with an idea that you have about yourself, I am this, I am not that, where is the opportunity to consciously become someone else? Because remember, the goal here is we want to consciously embody who it is we must become to experience what we want. It must become a conscious process. So this is the process by which our current identity becomes weaker and weaker. We don't become so strongly identified with the thought, the feeling that we have. I want to demonstrate to you like how this whole process happens, and ancient yogis were the first ones to figure this out. They believed that when we begin initially, how life, as we perceive it, how it began, was everything began from a state of nothingness. And then what happened was this nothing became aware. And then what happened at the next stage was this awareness became conscious of itself. Then there was consciousness. The consciousness then devised the mind. There started to become, there was movements within consciousness. When there is movement in consciousness, we call it mind. There started to become movement within consciousness. So just notice this right now. The reason why you can't exist as awareness is because there is a stillness behind that. We can only notice what's moving, right? So if you look at an ocean, if you stare at an ocean for long enough, if the water is completely still, you won't even notice there's water there. But as soon as there's a drop or a stone or something, an object drops in the water and there's a disturbance, we only notice disturbance. So as soon as there was disturbance within consciousness, the mind was born. And then the mind gave birth to the body. You can verify this to be true because of the presence of placebo effects, right? So sometimes people spontaneously heal themselves even though they were given a pill that has nothing in it, that has no quality in it. I shared a story in one of the earlier videos about how I convinced my friend to believe that, a piece of candy actually had marijuana, or weed, and he really believed it and he got high from it. But then I told him there was nothing in it and he couldn't believe it, that it had nothing in it. But this is exactly how this process happened. But the mission for us to begin this process of disidentifying, because please understand, identity occurs here. At the level of mind and body, there is identity. And this is the most physical, and the more we go towards here, the subtler it gets. So, the mission for us is at this level of consciousness. It's the same exercise that we did. We notice thought, we notice feeling, and then we notice the noticing. So when we can do that, when we can notice the noticing, when consciousness becomes conscious of itself, we cut off this cycle. We begin this process of disidentification. And we can largely reside as awareness. Awareness is formless. There is no form. It's not local. It's not localized to the body. Right? Right now, the boundaries of what you call as yourself is your body, right? This is the boundary of what I call Quazi. But what if these boundaries were to expand and you included your environment in it? Well, then you would largely become limitless, right? So this is the process of disidentifying. When we disidentify our identity, this identity that was unconsciously crafted, it becomes weaker and weaker. Now we can choose who it is we would like to embody in this physical, this material world. Okay? A great book that I recommend for you to read that discusses all of this, that I first learned about this, the process of self-inquiry, is the book called Who Am I by Sri Ramana Maharshi. It's a 30 or 40 page book, and it really got me started on this journey. It's the process of self-inquiry, the path of intellect. Now, right now, what's really messed up is a lot of people wear their traumas like a badge. We've become a walking bundle of traumas. It's kind of messed up to think about, but everything that's happened to people in the past, they sort of keep that narrative going by saying, oh, I'm an abuse survivor. I'm this and this has happened to me. They kind of wear it like a medal. And when it's done unconsciously, this drama, it's kind of messed up to think about. We get a small hit, a feeling of belonging, of validation. It's when you become, let's say you are a divorced single mother. Some of them proudly claim, oh, I'm divorced and I'm a single mom, even though they don't feel good about it, even though that's not what they want. They say it out loud to relate with their friends, and they surround themselves with more divorced single moms. And so they keep themselves stuck in that energy of being a divorced single mom. And then they craft unconsciously the identity of being a divorced single mom. So we have to become very, very careful of the narrative that we keep going unconsciously. This is why it's so important to begin observing and becoming conscious of everything, of the stories that we tell ourselves, of the thoughts that we think, the feelings that we feel, and ultimately The last step is to become conscious of consciousness itself. So that's the key. Staying as awareness, being completely aware of your current identity. And as you stick with this for a long enough period of time, I can promise you this identity will become weaker. One day you'll wake up and you'll feel so peaceful and empty inside. There will be no more being reactive to circumstances, no more fear. You'll literally become so empty inside, and life will take on a whole new, whole different meaning. And that's the beginning of freedom. So now what needs to happen is we've got to consciously craft that identity that we would like to function as, the next version of ourselves, which is what we're going to do right now. Okay, so for this part of the video, we're going to be doing a fun little exercise where we're going to craft our 2.0 selves. This is probably one of the most crucial parts of the process, second to stepping beyond the identity, because we really have to create and get clear on who we have to become in order to accomplish what we want. Okay, so the exercise is creating your 2.0 character, and this exercise is one of the ones that we do with our paid clients of our Reality Mastery program. So over 1,000 clients have been through this process, so we know it works, and I'm really excited to share this with you. So first, what you want to do is get a piece of paper, and this is going to serve as your programming document, okay? And what I want you to do first of all is draw a picture of your ideal self. It can just be like a sketch or anything, but just make it as creative as possible. Maybe you give this 2.0 character your highest self a cape. Maybe you write some scribbles of some qualities around it. Whatever it may be, just draw a picture to most accurately represent how you want this character to look, to be, essentially. And right next to it, I want you to do a few things. Number one, what we're going to do is define 5 superpowers that this character has. So think about all of the superpowers that your character needs to have. And these are essentially traits that your character would possess so they can effortlessly achieve what you want them to achieve. So for example, one of them could be fearless leader. If you're running a business and you have a big team, you want a leader. You need to become a great leader. So a fearless leader. And then a description next to what this superpower enables them to do. Fearless leader. Quazi's amazing leadership skills allows him to have a super motivated team, and his customers look to him for support or look to him for advice and guidance. He's a very effective leader to his customers and to his team. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. So what could be yours? What's your version of that? Define 5 qualities, 5 superpowers. Next, what you want to do is define 5 accomplishments that this character has. So I want you to think longer term. What are those things that you want to achieve? So for example, this character has achieved $1 million months in its business, or a happy family, 3 healthy kids, or this character has achieved 180 pounds, 5% body fat, and in amazing health, amazing shape. Whatever it is that you would like to accomplish. This character has achieved becoming a bestseller. What are the 5 accomplishments that this character has? And these are the goals that you want to accomplish. And next, what we want to do is define 5 key habits that this character has. You can frame these habits as a quality as well. So for example, early riser. Quazi arises at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. every single day without fail, naturally full of energy. Any other habits that this character has? So this character goes to the gym every single day. So 5 actions that this character takes that makes this character who he or she is. And next, we're going to get a little more creative. So please remember that this exercise is supposed to be a creative one. So you want to create different columns on that piece of paper and write 5 things down. This is going to serve as your programming document, okay? Next, what you want to do is define this character's style. What kind of hairstyle does this character have? What kind of outfit does he or she wear? What makeup, jewelry? So for example, for a long time, I wrote on my vision board or my programming document that I would wear a Rolex, like wear a simple Rolex, and my outfit is sweatpants and a simple t-shirt. And so that's something you want to do for yourself and try to live as closely as you can to that. Next, what you want to do is create 5 affirmations. So what are 5 affirmations that this character, that accurately resembles this character, that you can use on your current character, that bridges the gap between where you are now, your current character, and where it is you want to get to? So for example, it could be something along the lines of the superpowers that you've defined. Mine is Quazi's YouTube channel is thriving and customers look to him every single day for guidance. It attracts millions of viewers every single day, etc. Something along those lines. So what could be your version of that? 5 different affirmations. Ideally, I like this to be in 5 different areas of my life, but there are some areas of your life that are more important or more significant than others, that are a higher priority for you than others. So you can do a couple more for those. And so that completes this document. And what I want you to do next is, once you've crafted it, just put it right next to your bed, okay, like on your bedside table or whatever, and read it every morning and every night before bed. Every morning, first thing you wake up in the morning, and every night before bed. And just do this for 40 days and see what happens. Your life will dramatically change. I can almost guarantee that. So do that, and I'm excited for you. So the next step, and this is also a very, very crucial one, and a lot of people fail at this, is once you've crafted this identity and you're on your process on a journey to becoming this ideal self, there's always a pitfall that arises that takes you out of character. So we're going to discuss how you can stay in character so you can fully consolidate this 2.0 version of yourself. Okay, so let's jump right into that. Okay, so now that you know what identity shifting is, how to go beyond the identity, and also how you've probably now crafted this new identity and you're clear on who it is you've got to become, now it's all about staying within this identity. So the biggest problem I see is that people try to become someone new and they cannot stay in it. The challenges come up, they start to doubt themselves, and they fall back into that old self. And that's why there's this inconsistency people face. One of the biggest things we see is clients come to us and they're like, hey, 1 month in my business, I've brought in $80,000 in revenue, but then the next month it goes to 0. I go bankrupt and all of these things happen and I can never be consistent. Or other people say like, hey, I get into a relationship, but the same pattern keeps happening. At first, everything is great, but then the same pattern, the same toxicity, it's a same shit, different day kind of feel. Why does this happen? Well, it's because you've been working on the effects. You try to change an effect, but you've never really gone to the root cause of why you're experiencing what you're experiencing. If you imagine a domino, nothing really happens until the big domino falls, the domino that causes all the other dominoes to fall. And this is where staying in identity actually becomes very, very crucial. So one thing you really have to understand before we delve into this fully is our identity is very dynamic. It's not static. Life is in a constant process of becoming. Everything is evolving and moving towards something. Everything is changing form. Energy just changes form. It can never be created or destroyed. Remember how we said the ancient yogis believed that nothing evolved into body? It's just like that. Energy is just changing form continuously. So what ultimately matters is, are you going against life or are you with life? Because if you are with life and you become a reality creator, then it's all about adjusting your sails in accordance with wherever the wind is flowing. Okay, if you look at sailboats, they use the power of the wind to get them where they want to get to. That's how you want to be. You want to direct life, not control it. You want to channel your energies, not manipulate them. Okay? This is a very subtle difference that once you get really deep into this path, you're going to begin to realize how to do this. There's a fine line, a fine balance between putting in effort and surrendering and letting go. So understand that our identity is dynamic. At every single stage in your life, Life requires you to evolve and become a new you. So to give you a better example of this, when I went from my corporate career to starting up my own business, I had to become that business owner. I had to become the Quazi that makes good YouTube videos. So that's the identity that I focused on crafting. But then when I got into that and I made my first revenue, I had to become the Quazi that makes 6 figures because I wanted to grow to that. So then I shifted my identity into becoming that Quazi. Then I had to become the Quazi that makes 20K a month. Then I became that Quazi. The Quazi that makes 50K a month became that Quazi. The Quazi that makes 100K a month became that, 150, 200K a month. So by doing this, I am systematically becoming a new self. So that's why this whole process is dynamic. You constantly have to shed the identity that you've created in order to become a new you based on what life requires of you. Okay, so when I was the single Quazi, I had to embody the identity of the single Quazi. When I became the husband Quazi, I had to become a better husband, right? A better son, or whoever it is you would like to become at different points in your life. Whoever it is it's necessary for you to become at different points in your life. And the key is knowing, having that awareness of when you've got to ditch the old identity, but more important than that, not ditching it too early, grounding it enough until the thing that you want becomes a reality, okay? So the key word is grounding in reality. If you fail to ground this identity into reality, which is what we see happen with a lot of people, they get started on this journey and they see some results, and as soon as they see results, they forget to do all the work and they become complacent and lazy. And that's completely natural because remember, we never achieve our highest standards and our highest dreams. We always fall back to the lowest standard that we have of ourselves, the thing that we're willing to tolerate. So for that reason, we have to make this identity our neutral. We have to ground it in reality. There are many ways to do this, many ways that we share with our clients, but among those, there are 2 main ways that I'm going to share with you right now. Method number 1, fake it till you make it. There's a lot of controversy around this, but I can tell you from experience that this is the best way that you can become the ideal self. And one example that came my way quite recently was that of Ryan Serrant. So Ryan is a very famous real estate mogul and he's very active on Twitter. And he posted on Twitter how when he got started in real estate, he wanted to attract higher quality buyers, right? Higher quality clients. And in order to do that, he couldn't afford expensive clothing back then. So he went to Chinatown and he bought a fake Rolex. And this is what he says. He says, "For a while, that cheap yellow knockoff watch was like my security blanket. Seeing Rolex whenever I checked the time was like having a vision board for success right there on my wrist. And not to mention, it genuinely gave me a huge boost in my confidence." He really faked it till he made it. He's worth 40 million now. That kid who started with nothing, his net worth is around 40 million last time I checked. This really goes to show that who you pretend to be is who you'll become. At first, it's going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel fake because you're not accustomed to being this version of yourself. It feels unnatural for you to authentically even be you, because what is it that's you? You're comfortable being someone else because that's who you've been your whole life. Now, what if I were to tell you that this is who you were meant to be? The version that you've just crafted in that last step was who you're meant to be. Would you believe me? You probably wouldn't, because it just doesn't feel right. This feeling that you have is very subjective. When you fake it until you make it, until you've made it, it doesn't become a part of you. And once you've made it, when you look back, you're like, I can't believe I was any other way. Like when I look back at the Quazi that I used to be, I just couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe that that's who I used to be, because that to me would feel completely unnatural. So that's one of the main ways in which you can become that self that you're wanting to become. So look at all those qualities that you've listed down. How can you begin to fake it till you make it? Is it by getting a fake Rolex or wearing outfits, or what can you have that will allow you to be? Okay, so you can use doing and having as a method to you being. That's method number 1. Method number 2, this is one of the most powerful things that every single client that I talk to, every single client attributes their success to this. And this is creating and keeping a confirmation journal. So essentially, when you set out with a new belief, a new affirmation, it needs to be grounded in confirmation. Otherwise, your mind will not believe it. The mind will not get on board and it will always interrupt and get in the heart's way. So to create a confirmation journal, what I recommend is Having something like this. I bought this on Amazon. It's like a little diary, and you can there's just enough space to put one thing in there. So I want you to call this your confirmation journal. And every night before you go to bed, write one confirmation about how you became the ideal self today. Glimpses of you being that 2.0 self that you've crafted. Anything that happened in your reality that corresponds to you being the ideal self. Now, I want you to exaggerate this at first, because when you start to do it, it won't feel natural. It will be like, oh, this doesn't really feel like me being my ideal self. Well, how do you know? It's entirely subjective. Let's say you want to become a successful coach. Let's say someone comments on your YouTube video saying, this was a good video. Tiniest things, don't judge it. The key here is do not judge it, okay? You have to be biased. Look at the most successful people. They were incredibly biased. It's their way or the highway. People like Elon Musk, people like Jeff Bezos, they just have this internal conviction in the vision that they have for what they want. You need to have that for your ideal reality to manifest, okay? For you to become your ideal self. You need to be incredibly biased, but in a good, pure intentioned manner. Otherwise, you just become a psycho. So these are the two methods. One of our clients recently followed these methods, and what happened was Joey, he joined us and he was struggling trying to quit his corporate design job and transition into business for himself. He knew he could do it because he'd done freelancing before, but he was plagued with doubt and he'd become so comfortable and rise up the corporate ranks. After he followed these methods, he really became the Joey 2.0, and as a result, within a couple of months of working with us, he closed around 17.6K in new business. And now he's fully in business for himself as a design consultant. So this is the power of you embodying your ideal self. You'll very quickly begin to see changes happen within your reality. And before you know it, you've already become and you're already experiencing the new reality, right? So what I want you to do right now is pause this video and write these two methods down. Write a way in which you'll take action on faking it till you make it, and go ahead and order a confirmation journal, and every single night, I just want you to do this for 40 days. That's all you have to do to begin seeing changes. Because when we add these confirmations, we actually stack the chips on the side of who we want to become. Okay? And then this new identity that seems so weak all of a sudden becomes stronger and stronger. So look, this video is great. There are tons of great videos online that pop up here and there sporadically. But if you'd like to make a real change in your life, like some of the clients that I've shown you, what really needs to happen is a committed decision on your part. And you need to follow a committed path. You must surround yourself with a like-minded community of others who have what you want and are crushing it. And also other people who are on this exact same journey as you are in that same situation that you are at or have been. You are the average of your 3 closest friends. So if you'd like to get real results in your life and make a permanent change, here's my invitation to you. You can now apply to work closer together with me and my team in our flagship Reality Mastery program. Okay? I'd like to tell you a little bit about how Reality Mastery came about, if you don't mind. Our flagship Reality Mastery program was actually born from a deep place of frustration. See, I was destined to a 9-to-5 job for the next 40 years of my life, and I realized that I didn't want to enslave myself for that long, only to experience freedom, live the life that I wanted when I retired. I always felt trapped, and I believed truly that I was a victim to my circumstances and that I had zero control over my life. After trying a million different strategies, from business tactics, trying to start up different online businesses, to meditation techniques, I realized that if I wanted to experience a reality that was different from the current one that I was experiencing, I needed to change. I needed to shift my identity. And when I did finally change my whole self-view, my identity, only then did I start to see permanent change happen in my outer reality. So that's what we do here at realitycreator.com. Our mission is to help every single human being on earth to master their destiny and to live a totally free and unbounded life. And to do that, I crafted the Reality Mastery program to share and help clients do this for themselves. So let me explain who this program is for. Number one, it's for professionals who are aspiring entrepreneurs. They're stuck in a corporate career, they feel trapped, and they want to transition out into their business, but they cannot. They keep doubting themselves and they lack confidence to go all in on their businesses, and therefore they can't see a clear-cut path. And this is usually a clarity problem. Number two, this is for existing entrepreneurs who are stuck at a certain revenue level, or they're stuck at a certain point in their business, usually low six figures, and they've tried different business strategies, but nothing seems to stick. Typically, this is an identity problem. Okay, they believe that their subconscious and their conscious minds aren't aligned together, and that's why they don't see progress. If this sounds like you, then I encourage you to apply to see if it would be a good fit to work together. Simply click on the link in the pinned comments or go to realitycreator.com/apply. You'll be prompted to fill in a short survey to schedule a consultation call with one of my team members or myself to see if we're a good fit to work together. Now, I just want to be completely transparent. We get around 500 applications each month, and we can let in only 25 clients. That's a 5% acceptance rate, probably lower than Harvard. In our Reality Mastery program, we want to make sure that we work with those who we can get a very powerful result and a quick result. So for that reason, the right fit is imperative. Please don't apply if you're looking for a free coaching call. This is a diagnosis call to see if the program would be a fit. And please don't apply if you're not able to invest financially in your personal growth. Full transparency, this is a paid program. So if you would like to apply, just go to realitycreator.com/apply. I love you, and we're looking forward to speaking with you to see if and how we can work together to get your result. Till next time, peace.